Welcome to the Asking Why podcast. Our goal is to get to the root issues of systemic problems using a theological and psychological lens. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Asking Why podcast. I'm your host, Clint Davis, and we have a good friend of mine, Lisa Arendell, with me today. She is and I'm going to let her tell it because she just told me, and then my brain just blanked. So tell me your handle. What would you call yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Clint. Thank you. I'm a communication and body language coach, and I'm a John Maxwell leadership coach as well.
That's right. And I've been to her trainings. I can say that, and they're awesome. And I loved when I got to spend some time with you last year doing that. I've thought about it a lot and used several things with our staff that you taught me, and made great connections. We actually switched from one of the CFO companies that we have to CRI this year with
Angel.
Yeah, Angel. Yeah. So
amazing.
So I think one of the things you bring, you just have so much energy that I love about you. And I do jiu-jitsu with Lisa's husband, Randy, so we'll give him a shout out.
Yeah.
And he beats me up all the time and has taught me so much. So, but I, on your social media, on your Instagram, one of the things I love about you is, I'm 43, feel like, becoming an adult finally. And you just have so much energy in life. And on your videos, you do dances all the time. You even talk Randy into doing some dances every once in a while. So anyway, there's a lot to talk about, but kind of tell us who you are and kind of what got you into this kind of phase of your life.
Wow. Okay. So let me back up. Let me back way up.
Sure.
Let me back way up to the 1970s. So I think my origin story is pretty kind of fun and unorthodox, and it's such a testament to God and where He's brought me. So I was raised as a gypsy by a couple of hippies. Okay.
Wow.
So product of the 70s, me and my mom and my dad, we lived off the grid back in the 70s. We grew our own food. We had our own outhouse. We grew our own weed, like we were hippies.
Okay.
And we were gypsies because we just constantly moved.
Where was this at?
So where wasn't it? Let's see. We started off in Indiana, then Kentucky, then Massachusetts, and that was all by the time I was about 2, and many houses in between there. When my mom and dad split, me and my mom moved to Louisiana to start all over because she had a brother here.
Okay.
And thankfully, it was a military town because people just assumed we kept moving because we were in the military. I'm like, sweet, they think we're in the military. But honestly, we were just incredibly unstable. And we were just always searching for the next best situation. And what that meant, Clint, is that I never really felt like I belonged anywhere. I was always in a different school. I was always in a different neighborhood. And I was always in a different friend group and trying to figure out where the heck do I fit in here now, right? And by
Which is so hard for kids.
So hard. Yeah. It was so hard, but it was normal to me because it's all I knew. So by the time I was 24, I had lived in 55 different homes.
Wow.
And then I met this man named Randy, and he was so stinking normal. He had lived in the same house since he was 1. He had this amazing mom and stepdad and these 3 incredible sisters, and I was just like so in love with him and so in love with this normal, grounded lifestyle. And I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. But then his family decided they wanted to meet my family. Well, we were still gypsies and hippies. We were still moving. We still had the tapestries. We still had the incense. We still had the weed. Like, it was just my life. And I just remember, I'll never forget, I was standing shoulder to shoulder with my mother looking out our kitchen window. And I was watching his family walk up to my door like slow motion. And I remember looking at my mom and I said, I feel like the apostles are about to meet the Addams family. And I mean it. I felt it was just, I was terrified. And I was worried that they were going to walk in and they were going to realize I didn't belong in this family, that I wasn't worthy, and that I just wasn't good enough for their son. But something pretty incredible happened. They were curious. They asked questions, but they were so kind, and they accepted me right where I was. And, today, Randy and I, this December, will be celebrating 30 years of marriage. And what that story, the reason I want to share that story is because part of where I am today as a communication and body language coach, I truly believe came from being in all those friend groups and those new neighborhoods and having to figure out, literally read people like, okay, what, based on how they're coming across, are they accepting me? Am I an outcast? I had to get good with words that I used and how I came across and how I presented myself. And so I can look back and I can see this thread of pain and unbelonging and not really knowing where I did belong, and seeing that God brought it brought me where I am today, using so many things that now I can look back at and say those were skills that I learned. Back then I just felt like a hot mess.
Yeah.
But I can see where it really forced me to have to read people, make sure that I was presenting myself in the right way, because the more I moved, the better I got at making friends. And I actually did make friends along the way. Some of them I still have today.
Wow. So when you look back on that, I think, our trauma responses, right, which is clearly what some of that was, is trying to figure out how to adapt and function. How have you learned to take maybe those things that used to be coping, right, and turn them into maybe the positive things that they are now?
It took a while for me to see them as positive, to be honest. I played the victim for a long time and maybe this is why I'm still, because I still struggled as an adult, actually for quite a while as an adult, because I kept moving. At this point now, I've only lived in 55 homes. I've been in the same home for 22 years, I think. When I tell you, when we bought this house, I was like, our kids will live in this house until they're out of this house. That was my determination. So I think some of what I used to cope and how I've transferred it now is helping other people. Like, that's the positive to me I can take. And this is any of our story, right? Anything that we've gone through that we can see can add impact to others. Anybody who feels like an outsider, anybody who feels like they don't belong, anybody who feels like they're weird or their life is unacceptable. I can now come in and I can speak from a place of, you know what, God really turned beauty from ashes in my situation. And so that's one of the things I'm blessed that I get to do through my work with teams. Although I don't always bring in that story, I know that I can add an impact in a way that I never could have had I not walked through that. Yeah,
that's great. So tell me a little bit about how that transition. So you and Randy meet, you have this Addams Family, the Apostles meeting, and how did that transition into you being coaching? What did you do in between that and
good. Yeah, no, that's good. That's another good story. So I started working out at 16 years old, fell in love with health and fitness. So I was actually in the health and fitness category lifestyle for 34 years.
Okay.
But in that time, I had the ability to help different teams with different companies to grow. I think I just always had this leadership thread within me that people saw and sought. So as a personal trainer and a health coach, I was helping individuals with self-leadership, but at the same time, I was able to help some teams along the way. So about 2 years ago, I decided it was time to walk away from health and fitness for good. I just really felt that God was pulling me towards this communication, this leadership, and working even more locally. Even though I'm in talks with a company right now to fly me out, so I'm starting to move beyond Shreveport, Bossier. But I really decided to put down my roots here first, to serve my community and to make sure that I was bringing impact right where I was. So that's and it was a messy transition. There was a whole year of identity crisis. I had been health and fitness for 34 years, and even though I had done some leadership stuff, this is what people knew me as. And so I mean, Randy and I had lots of conversations, and I was just, some meltdowns, like, I don't know who I am anymore. This is I've kind of pigeonholed myself, and now to say, okay, I did a little bit of this, but now I'm 100% in over here, it felt like a big gap. So I took an entire year and I did a lot of stuff just for free. I spoke, I did some trainings, I just put myself out there and served and served and served. And then all of a sudden it began to blow up, and those seeds began to bring forth some pretty amazing fruit. And that's how I got where I am today.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's a very similar story to a lot of people. I mean, there's several ways of becoming successful, but I love that story because within our practice, people ask like, well, how have y'all done this in the way that you've done it? How's it blown up? And it's very similar. Like, there were just years where you're just doing whatever somebody asks you to do and showing up to a crisis, or, the school has a drowning and you're like, I'm a counselor, I'll show up, I know these people, and you just do that over and over and over again. And you don't know all the seeds that God is planting and all the relationships because a lot of times to people, and this is important for people to know and hear, the things that you think are little are not small to other people.
That's right.
There's moments that you're like, oh, I just did this and it took 30 minutes, or this was just an hour and it feels so natural for you to give, and the Holy Spirit, makes that so easy.
That's right.
Nobody else is doing that for them in their life. And so it's like showing up or just taking the time to have that conversation or help them to and truly believe like, oh, these people are important. Most people don't walk around feeling important or seen.
That's right.
And so it's like, yeah, I mean, you have to invest in that season. I think for long-term success in a godly way, I think you just have to invest in relationships. And then those relationships will connect you with people who are like, I love this person. I care about this person. This person's authentic and I trust them. And then that is what, can blow up.
That's right. That's right.
Or you can do it cheaply,
mm-hmm.
And I think those are like bottle rockets.
Mm-hmm.
They shoot off and they're really beautiful and they blow up. But then it's like, there's no relationship connected. And
yeah.
So, I love that. All right. So you do the fitness stuff. You've done that for a long time, and then you transition into the coaching world, mm-hmm. the body movement, all those kind of things. So up until the last, how did your faith play into that? So you were gypsies. Were y'all Christians? Like,
no.
What? Okay.
No.
So tell me about how that.
My mom had full out-of-body experiences with Buddha, and she literally, the other day.
Now, your parents still alive?
No. Well,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think my dad is still alive. I actually friend requested him on Facebook. He walked out of my life at 2, and that was it. And I'm like, and what do I have to lose? I'm going to friend request him. Anyway, I've reached out to him over the years, and thankfully, God has always been my daddy. And so I did have daddy issues for a long time, but I've healed from that. Randy thanks me for healing from that. Bless his heart. It was a transition, but no, they split when I was 2, and my mom remarried a couple times. One of my mom's remarriages, they had my little sister Jessica, who has Down syndrome.
Okay.
Then they split. She got married again. So my mom's been divorced for a very long time, and it was just me and my mom and my sister for since I was maybe 14 or 15.
Okay.
It's just been us.
And how old Jessica?
Jessica is she'll be 40 this December.
Oh,
Isn't
wow.
that crazy?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So no, I was raised in just about every religion there was. And then probably when I was maybe my mid-teens, early to mid-teens, we did start visiting some different Christian churches. I was drawn to the Lord by, I was 1 month away from my 21st birthday.
Okay.
So Randy and I were dating already when I became a Christian. But, of course, his family had met mine when there was no Christianity involved at all. My mom, just a funny side note, the other day she was watching a documentary, and it was about these 2 cult practitioners. And she said, I remember being in their room, and these people are like famous now. And I'm like, Mama, you have the most colorful past of anybody I've ever met. So, no, we were not Christians when I met Randy, met his family. My mom has since converted to Christianity.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very, very grateful that we do have a beautiful story out of all of that. Yeah.
All right. So what was the transition? Because, it's very interesting to me that you grow up, we live in the South. So there's lots of people who listen to this all over the country, all over the world now. So it's like people don't understand, my California friends who listen, they don't necessarily grow up in kind of the evangelical conservative.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people around here, they just kind of think church is what everybody goes to.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh, we just all know this. And that's for better and worse, right?
Sure.
So for you, seeing all these other gods, hearing all these other stories, being a kid that kind of grew up bouncing around, what was the transition like? Like, what do you remember? Was it slow? Was it kind of one of those silver bullet moments? Like what happened that made like Jesus real?
I remember very well. So my husband and I were cheerleaders in college. That's how we met. That's how Randy and I met. And we were cheering at Bossier Parish Community College. And my cheerleading partner at the time was a Christian, and I was not. And the Persian Gulf War was going on. And his name is Scott Bennett, still a good friend to this day. And he said to me, Lisa, and he knew I wasn't a believer, he said, if Jesus were to come back today, because that was kind of the thing in the Christian circles, like, this is a sign that Jesus is coming back. He said, if he came back today, where would you go? And I had to sit with that. We were literally in the pews after a basketball game, and he asked me that, and I said, I don't know. So that was what planted the seed, and it took me an entire year. Randy and I went on to cheer at Northwest Louisiana University, that's now ULM, and we were in our our first year there, which was my, junior year at that time. And I walked into a church, and they had a track sitting in the seat. And I went back to my apartment that night with the track in my bed, read it, and I said, it's time, because the world was still a mess, and I thought, I don't know where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And that's when I made that transformation. And I had been in the Christian church a few years at that point, but had not made that decision until that time. So it took, I guess you could say, the fear. It was fear, I guess, that led me there, because I thought if the world ends, I don't know where I'm going. But I'm okay with that. Yeah. I'm okay with that. I don't care. God, that's what it took to get my attention.
Yeah.
And thankfully the world didn't end. But I am so grateful for my cheerleading partner back at Bipsy, who was so bold to say, what's going to happen to you, know, tomorrow. And so I give a lot of credit to him.
Well, I think that's such a great balance, because so many people will come on and, you know, talk about faith and transformation. And like, my story is very different. It's like, I just grew up in a Christian home with people going to church every Wednesday and deacons, and you go on Sunday, and, you know, and it's hellfire and brimstone. And so the fear was more like, you need to be good enough. You know, you need to earn it. You need to be a good boy. And it's like, you're trying. And so that gospel message didn't really get through until my, you know, late 20s really is when I think I really started understanding the gospel. And so it's just, I think it's beautiful that it's both.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if you've grown up in a home where you have no context whatsoever for eternity, the gospel, these are really rich conversations that people should be having with the people they love at their business, at their work, in the military. Like, that's a great question. Like, what's going to happen? Like, where do you think we come from? Where do you think we go? Because people are in pain and desperate for those questions. And then there's some people who it's like, they've heard that 1,000 times. And what they need to understand is, who is Christ to you, really?
That's right.
You know, what's the good news?
That's right.
And I see people every week that have gone to church, have been churched, and they're in my office and they're shaking their head and they're crying. And I'm saying, okay, look, I know you've been through all this, but when God looks at you, what does he think? And they go, oh, I think he's disappointed. You know, I think he's mad. I think he thinks I should do better. I think he is tired of me. And these are people who have been churched their whole life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is that the message? You've been in the, you know, in the pews your whole life. How is that the message? And so I think either way, the good news is that God is a loving Father who breaks through whatever the barrier it is.
That's great.
Your barrier was you hadn't heard anything.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of the Gulf War going, hey, if I die, where am I going?
That's right.
Some other barrier is, oh, I think I've heard this message about God my whole life, but it's been another corrupted version of the gospel.
That's right.
So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of give your life to Christ with a track, literally. And then, and was Randy a believer at the time?
He became a believer 3 months later.
Okay.
Yeah. He was raised in a church that, you know, if you went in the water, then you came out a believer. And so his family, even when he came to Christ, at the beginning it was a little bit of a struggle, because they're like, well, you've been a Christian for however long? He's like, actually, I never really submitted my heart to Jesus. So, you know, my conversion definitely woke him up, because a lot of things in our relationship changed at that point. Once I came to know the Lord, I'm like, yeah, we got to have some boundaries here. And 3 months later, he's like, you know what? I'm in it. He had his own personal, beautiful testimony and transformation that happened in his life. And so it's a beautiful testimony of what God can do. 'Cause we couldn't have been raised different. He was raised in a Christian home, much like you.
Yeah.
Right? He was raised in that Christian home. He had that grounding. He had that faith that was woven through, but it wasn't a decision that he decided to make until God got a hold of him.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. It's like tracks are in both of those stories, but they have totally different meanings and purposes.
That's right.
And that just speaks to me of like God's sovereignty and goodness, that he pursues us and he chases us and he knows what his children need.
Yeah.
You know, he's not going to leave us to save ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that's so encouraging, because so many times I think people who hear this think, you know, they're, oh, my testimony doesn't matter, or this happened to me, or whatever. And it's like, no, it's super valuable to hear the different ways in which God reaches out and kind of plucks us from our own
That's right.
demise.
Absolutely.
Okay, so y'all stay married, and y'all are living in Shreveport, Bossier? Is
Correct.
that okay?
Yep.
And so you start doing. How did you get into the fitness stuff? That's just something you've always liked and been passionate about.
Well, I started lifting when I was 16.
Okay.
And so when I entered college, my mom had been in the dental field for, almost 20 years. She's like, Lisa, they always need dental hygienists. Well, I had actually wanted to be a marine biologist up until I met Randy. I was going to train Shamu. That's what I wanted to do. I'm not even kidding. I
could see you doing that.
I would have been awesome at it. But I've got a dolphin. Like, that was my first tattoo, is a dolphin on the instep of my foot. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, I knew I was going to be a marine biologist. Well, after Randy and I started dating, I was going to go off to Texas to become a marine biologist. He was going to NLU to become a cheerleader and do business management. And I'm like, but I love you and I'm not ready to leave you. So then I had to go to NLU, middle of Louisiana, where there was no marine biology. And
not too many killer whales around.
Right, not too many killer whales. So my mom talked me into going into dental hygiene, and I was in that for 6 months.
Okay.
And I suddenly went, oh my gosh, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Went to my counselor, laid out all my credits. I said, how can I get out of here the fastest? And she said, health and human performance. I'm like, sold. That sounds good to me. And I did that and then fell in love with it and stayed in for my master's in exercise science.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how I ended up there. It's not something I had always wanted to do,
Yeah.
but it was something I did love.
And you were doing a lot of like fitness coaching and personal training.
Correct.
And that's what you've kind of done the bulk of for how long?
That was 34 years of my
Wow.
life. Yeah.
And so what was the spark to kind of change into?
You know what, Clint? I just felt like, I feel like the fitness, I feel like it's gotten a little bit toxic. I've got a big presence just a smidge toxic. And I've got a big presence on social media. And I started seeing these massive multi-million follower influencers taking other well-meaning, well-intentioned. One of them was a dear friend of mine with tons of followers herself, who is a master at exercise science. And he did a side-by-side and began to tear her apart. Two influential people in this space, and I'm looking through the eyes of the average person going, I just need somebody to tell me what to do. And here's this guy tearing down my friend who knows what she's talking about. But and this is all the time now, and it just became this culture war within the industry. And I had a beautiful program and women all over the United States that was in this program. And I thought, you know what? That was the first time that I was like, I don't think I want to be part of this anymore. I don't like that people are on the outside looking in, seeing us fighting over something that's supposed to be science. And of course, then, a month later, we find out that actually wasn't accurate. I thought, I want to leave on a high note. And I want to go into something that creates an equal amount of impact, but that looks completely different. And that's when God just laid this on my heart. You already have some experience here. He began to thread me through some teams early on. And I thought, wow, I was good at that. I felt good at that. And I felt like I created impact. So it was this messy transition, but a hand in a glove. I knew that this is where I needed to be. So that's why I decided to pivot originally.
When did you get the John Maxwell stuff?
2 years ago.
Okay.
Almost 2 years ago, somewhere in there, year and a half.
So how do you kind of get on board with that? How'd you pick that? How did that land in your life?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I was kind of at that pivot point, leaving health and fitness, thinking, okay, do I want to become a life coach? Like I still wanted to work with people. I still wanted to impact. So leadership development had not exactly taken root in me. So I began to search out different life coaches that I loved. One was Valerie Burton, who's been in this space forever. She's a believer. She's read a ton of books. And I was thinking, well, maybe I'll take her life coach certification. Well, then I found out she is a coach for John Maxwell, like on his team. And I've been following John Maxwell since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh my gosh, I can come and get the best of both worlds over here. So I decided not to become a life coach, but to get Valerie's coaching, mentorship, tutorship under the John Maxwell leadership banner.
Gotcha.
So that's what led me to deciding it's John Maxwell that I loved. And even though, yes, I am a coach, I really don't do a lot of one-on-one. It's really mostly with teams, and I'm a keynote speaker too. So through John Maxwell, what it's done is we're able to use his name. And if you're in leadership, more than likely you've heard the name John C. Maxwell. And so it's opened doors for me, both with speaking and with working with teams and doing workshop facilitations and things like you got to experience, which was the leadership game. That's also a John Maxwell asset that we get to use.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how many times a year are you doing the keynote stuff?
Oh my goodness. Well, in the month of March, I think I have 2 or 3. My first one is Global Leadership Talk that's coming up in a week and a half. I've already done 3 this year. I've got 2 more scheduled for April, 1 or 2 more scheduled for April. I think another one in May. It's right now it's every month. It's incredible. Like I said, all of that fruit is starting to come to fruition. And people hear you. And, one of the things that I love is that I'm not a talking head for an hour. I really use engagement. And I think people are kind of shocked by that. They're just, they expect, oh, we're just going to go listen to somebody talk. And nobody wants to hear anybody talk for an hour. So for me, I really use experience and an experiential engagement during that time. And I think between that, word of mouth, and just doing the hard work of getting out there, God has just allowed those seeds to begin to flourish.
That's awesome. Are you enjoying like the speaking part?
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like a 50-50 thing. It's like half of what I do is keynotes, and then half of what I do is workshop facilitation. I love them both equally.
Yeah, people are asking me all the time, like, are you still seeing clients? I'm like, yes, I still see like 15 people a week. Like, I love to do therapy.
Yeah.
But the speaking and teaching part is so fun.
Yes.
And very, the interactive part is really, really vital.
Yes.
It's like I just did like 7 hours or 6 hours with all the Bossier Parish school counselors. So
Wow.
Bossier had me come in and train them.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah, let's get up, let's move around, let's do some role play, let's do some scenario. And like nobody wants to listen to me talk 4-hour sessions about
right.
therapy.
Right.
And I think that's a really important coaching model, especially because so much of therapy is let's just talk about it and let's just listen and let's just gather more information. And yet the real reality is when you make people practice and move their body and do stuff, like that's really where the implementation comes in.
I agree. Well, it just gets their brain engaged. It gets their body engaged. And I think anytime blood is flowing as well, right? We just do better. So yeah, I love that you do the same thing. That's amazing.
No, it's awesome. We went to Louisiana College a couple of weeks ago, and I had 2 of the therapists come with me, and we had to do 3 90-minute blocks. And I was like, look, you got to put in some interaction in the middle of 90 minutes.
Yes.
Like, yes, there's Q&A, but get them to do some role play, get them to do an empty chair, like have somebody come to the front, and they did it and crushed it. But it's strange because that is very, very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it sets you apart as a speaker and a teacher when you're bold.
Yeah.
And you're willing to interact and make it personal and relational instead of just information exchange.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right. So, John Maxwell, so what do you do with that? Like if somebody's listening to this and they have a business and they have something that you could benefit them with, what's kind of the 5-minute pitch?
Yeah.
Like what's the thing that you're offering and doing that you're like, man, I love doing this. And if you're listening and you want it, sign up.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll give you less than 5 minutes. It's pretty straightforward. So, top of the line, what I love to do is communication. Communication and connection. John Maxwell has a book called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. And I love that title because it couldn't be more true. And that's just kind of my mantra. Yeah, we all communicate, but are we really connecting? Mm-hmm. So if there are business owners, if there are business leaders, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, our team is in sales or there's customer service or even just with one another. Yeah, we communicate. We send emails. We say hi. We bump fists in the hall. But are we connecting? And when we're connecting, we build trust. Mm-hmm. And trust is at the epicenter of everything we do. It's how we build our influence. If there's no trust, there's no influence. And there can't be trust without connection. Mm-hmm. So when I became a body language coach as well, I got certified in that because I thought, wow. So I'm sure you know this, Clint, like in the communication picture, 7% is the words that we use. 38% is our tone, okay? So we spend all this time thinking, well, what am I going to say? Well, that's good, but that's only 7%. How you say it is 38%, but you know what's 55%? How we present ourselves, our body language, mm-hmm. how we're sitting, how we're looking. Are we leaning in? Are we leaning back? Are we trying to be all cool? But we're really actually just being aloof, mm-hmm. right? And so you said something a minute ago about everybody wants to be seen. And one of the keynotes that I do, I just did it a couple weeks ago, is on charisma. Charisma, when people think charisma, they think, extrovert. You have to be extrovert. You have to have this big personality. But the leadership definition of charisma is helping the person across from you feel seen, valued, and understood. Mm. With that as our definition, do you have to be an extrovert?
Nope.
No way. You could be the biggest wallflower in the world, but if I can help you show up and make the person in front of you, the client in front of you, the coworker in front of you, your wife, your husband, your child feel seen, valued, and understood, you will become one of the most charismatic people in their lives. And I'm so passionate about that because I believe, as my faith leads me, mm-hmm. that the ultimate, most charismatic person to ever walk this earth was Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And if we want to be an example and emulate him, then we need to build our influence, and we can't do that if we're not showing up charismatically, which comes back to connection. So those are some of the fun things I do. Anything in the leadership world as well. If people need trust, like the team that's wanting to fly me out next month, they're like, we need team building, we need some activities, we need some fun, and we need to build trust and collaboration with mm-hmm. one another. So anything that, I'm skilled at any of those things, super passionate about communication though.
Yeah, you do a great job. I mean, at the training we did, I really, really enjoyed it. And I think for any team wanting to, who isn't connected, I think, having you in just to do stuff really gives you an assessment of like what we're not doing well too.
That's right.
You know, everybody has room to improve. You know, as a business owner, I think you get into business, you know, we've been I think today is 9 years that we've been open.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So
it's a big deal.
but it's like crazy to look at how long that takes to get to a place where you're like, okay, I feel good.
Yes.
You know, like it's taken years and years and different styles of leadership and communication styles. And so, not that it wouldn't be great to have you in now, which we need to do, but because it's always, again, having someone outside come in and just kind of take an assessment and check in on where everybody else feels.
Yeah.
And I can do that as much as I can. I can ask, hey, how are you guys feeling? Let's have one-on-ones. Let's have meetings. Let's have groups. And we do all of that. But having someone sometimes outside source come in and check in, you know, and get some extra support is fantastic. Yeah. But I wish I would have done it early on. Mm-hmm. And so, sure. Or if there was a problem or conflict, you know, or whatever, we haven't had much. But if I can encourage any new business owner or business owner who's just been in it and really never checked in relationally, I think it's a huge need.
That's great. I agree.
And there's so many resources out there. Mm-hmm. I love the coaching stuff. I think as a therapist, you said something, you know, earlier about connecting, and I think coaches have such a different lane when it comes to helping people with their pain, because everything you just said was a very therapeutic language, you know, the way in which, and very Christ-centered language. And so ultimately it's really just discipleship. Yeah. You know, you're teaching people to be like Christ. That's right. In their own lanes. And that charismatic thing that you said where it's like, you know, you don't have to be an extrovert to be charismatic. It's so true. But our culture sees like successful people as being the ones on the stage and being the speakers. That's right. And I know you know this, but it's like, we are speaking and we are talking and we're doing all those things. But as we're speaking and talking, we're trying to value those people who will never be on the stage. That's and help them see that like, you don't have to be, you know, you just have to love the people next to you and do your thing and be who you're called to be in the best version of yourself.
That's exactly right.
But so many people are like, oh, I want to be like that. And it's like, no, just find out who you are, you know, and that takes connection and relationship, which is where coaching comes in.
That's right.
So many people try to figure out problems in their head. I asked somebody this morning, he was kind of unloading some things. And I said, well, who are you meeting with right now, one-on-one, to kind of shepherd you, mentor you, or in a group? And he's like, well, nobody. I'm like, well, where do you work out whether you should or shouldn't do these things? He's like, in my head. I'm like, how's that going?
Yeah, right.
You know, like that, we live in such an isolated culture where so many people, so many teams get so siloed and isolated, either individually or even as a business, where they just kind of have their own people, they do their own thing, and it's just what we do. And I think having somebody like you come in on the outside and go, hey, I'm not here to like fix you. I'm here to like support you and look at the workings of it, be relational. That's going to reveal what needs to happen and what needs to change.
That's exactly right. And I love so much about what you said, Clint, and it shows your leadership. And I just want to take a moment to highlight that, because I have worked with many leaders who, here's my team, here's the things that's wrong with them, and go. And my thing is, I cannot fix, you just said it, I cannot fix your team. That is not my job. Don't hire me to fix your team, because that's not what I'm here to do. What I'm here to do is help fill the gaps. And if you as a leader can come in and whether you're present, which is my hope is that the leaders will be present and get in the trenches with them, because that shows your team something really beautiful. But if you will be in the trenches in one way or another with them, this is a top-down issue. And if your team is a mess and you're the leader, the buck stops with you. And so it's really important that for the leadership as well. And I love what you just said, because that's an in the trenches with your team way to approach leadership. And that is so valuable. And that's why I think you are so successful at what you do.
No, I appreciate it. I think what's been hard for me in leadership is my tendency is to say, I won't do anything. I'm not going to ask you to do anything I wouldn't do.
Yes.
And that's been the case. But what I have had to learn is, once there is trust and there is connection and you have gone before, you have to actually stay in your lane and do the things you're good at and not feel bad about that. So for me, it's been like, oh, I actually can ask people for what I need, and I can be directive, and I can say, hey, I need you to do this or turn this in or show up here or start this group. And when you've built that connection and that trust, people want to follow you.
That's right.
Because they know that you're asking it out of love and out of like betterment for them.
Yes.
Not just benefiting you.
That's right.
And I would say that's something that's huge for leaders to take away is like, I want to be able to sleep at night. So if I made 75% more than everybody at my practice, then it's really more about the money than it is about the relationship. And so there is something there where it's like, man, I really want my people and our team to feel like we're on a team together. Do I do that perfectly? No. But do we have these conversations, and is my door open for criticism, and for correction and for whatever? I think it's really invaluable as a leader to be able to be called out, and to know, man, if I said something on this podcast, like even what I'm saying right now, if what I'm saying is bullcrap, I know 100% that 3 or 4 of my therapists are going to call me tomorrow or Friday and go, hey, listen to that podcast you have with Lisa. You said all this stuff, but that's not true.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
They would.
Yes.
Like they are not going to play because
Yes.
I've taught them that that's the relationship I want. And so it's really important that you as a speaker, as a leader, as a coach, that it's like, man, if the people that you know the best get a different version of you than what's on stage or what's on a podcast, like that's really the problem.
That's right. You just said, I just love this so much. It's so full circle. So Patrick Lencioni has a book. It's the very first book he wrote called 5 Temptations of a CEO. And the 5th temptation is all about vulnerability. And vulnerability of a leader is one of the hardest things to do because here's the kicker. Here's your team already knows where you mess up. They already know your gaps.
That's
they
right.
already know. So when you can, step up and say, hey, exactly what you said. I need that accountability. I need you to tell me. They already know. So if you can open up that door, it's already there when you're vulnerable enough to say, I want to hear from you where I can improve. That's really hard for a leader because we feel like, once we're in this place of position, we have to put on this iron coat and look a certain way. But your team already knows your holes. They already know it. So if you can admit, yeah, I know I have those holes too, and you have that open door for us to have that honest conversation, you talk about building trust. It's one of the fastest ways to build trust with a team.
Oh, yeah. As you're saying that, I also think about just the entitlement that leadership can bring you as a leader because you do sacrifice a lot. And nobody understands or cares about your baby as much as you do.
That's right.
And yet, if you really have this perspective, and I'm saying this knowing it's the Holy Spirit and not my flesh, but it's like, if you can really have the perspective that I'm not entitled to any of this anyway. I mean, my dream, Lisa, was literally just like an office with a chair and a couch and to do a private practice. Like,
Really?
you know what I mean? Like that's when I thought 10 years ago, or not 10 years, 20 years ago now, what would I like to do? It was like, a leather chair, a nice couch. And if I could just do counseling with people all day, man, that's the dream. I was working for Medicaid. I was doing in-home counseling. Most of my sessions were on the floor, in the hood, in impoverished areas, like violence and gangs around. I mean, all of those things. And so, I'm thinking, this is great. I loved it. I would walk in places and the cops would pull up and say, hey, why are you here? And I'm like, well, I'm doing counseling. And they're like, man, this is like hot right now. You shouldn't be here. And I'm like, it's fine. And it's like, obviously I got out of the Army. So it was also, I'd been to war. Driving around Shreveport really wasn't that scary to me.
Yeah, right.
Even though some people would debate. But the point is that then now I look up and I'm like, oh, we have 3 offices and 27 therapists and, this stuff that's going on. So it's all lagniappe. I don't deserve any of it. And so when things come up, it's not that I don't have feelings of entitlement, but I think as a leader, if you really value your people and realize like even Tracy, my administrator, or Ashley, my administrator, like they're invaluable to me. And if they weren't good at what they did, I couldn't do any of the things that I get to do.
Sure.
But none of them are more valuable than the other. But we get so caught up, like you said earlier, in all I do is this, or I'm just an assistant, or I'm just doing this. And it's like, no, like that's the body of Christ. Like
Yes.
you are absolutely necessary.
That's right.
And if we as leaders can look at that and go, every single person, their personality, their temperament, their good, their bad is necessary for this thing to happen, then it's not that you won't feel entitled and you won't get frustrated every once in a while, but you'll have a centering place of going, okay, what's really going on? What's going on in me that I need my people to appreciate me or to see all that I do. No, I don't.
Yep.
They do.
That's right.
They see it. They know it. So I'll walk in the office with Tracy and, say, hey, look, I know I'm an idiot and I forgot my calendar, whatever. And you just have to be honest.
Yeah.
But that authenticity of honesty, I'm going to work really hard at those areas, but I'm never going to be excellent at them.
That's right. Yeah.
So I have somebody who's excellent at it to help me. But if I get offended when they go, hey, man, your bad spot is annoying me, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it is annoying. I'm really sorry. What can I do about that? Versus, hey, you can't call me on that. Don't you see all the good I'm doing in this area? I think that's the major difficulty in our pride as leaders and our sense of entitlement, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think, unfortunately, that is more the norm. The second part of what you said, that is more the norm, where we feel like there has to be this this facade, because we have a position. And John Maxwell in his book, The 5 Levels of Leadership, level number 1 is position. You're not a leader just because of your position. Suddenly you're a manager. Suddenly you're the CEO. That doesn't make you a leader. It makes you a manager or a CEO. So your position is not where trust is built, right? So everything you just said, I absolutely love it, because it's 100% true. When we are vulnerable, authentic, and we allow our team to hold a mirror up to us, we just build a level of trust. And not only that, culture, because they may have a team one day, whether it's with us or somewhere else. And we want that ripple to go on and to lead by example. So
that's so good. Yeah. So when you go in, these are the things that you're helping them see and deal with and kind of work on within their teams?
Yeah. Usually it sometimes it starts with communication, because it's just so foundational, and then from there it'll end up being trust or collaboration, teamwork. There's a myriad of different things, and the leadership game that you got to experience. What's so cool about that, and just for the audience, a very, very brief high-level overview. It's a John Maxwell game that, yes, it's enjoyable, but it definitely starts to peel back some layers that can be a little uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And what you experienced was in a room full of people that some of y'all knew each other, but nobody was a team. It was a bunch of strangers. It was an experience. But when it's a team and they know each other, what those questions, and there's some fun in there and there's some prizes, but what they begin to do is, in a environment where they feel safe, they're able to bring some things to the table that's like, you know what, guys, we actually need to work on this. We've never talked about this before, but now that it's on the table, we need to uncover this. And that's when I'm able to go, wow, okay, let's talk about that. Where can we go from here? And then potentially through that, then we can build out some workshops and some training to work on those things.
Okay, so you'll do like an initial meeting with a team, and then you'll set up some future meetings to follow up and work on specific areas of struggle or difficulty.
Correct. That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really needed. I mean, I think by God's grace, we all need it. But I think there are some companies that just have never done it. They don't know how to lead, and that, like you said, that's the majority. People are just kind of winging it. They had a plan. They had an idea.
That's right.
It's blowing up, and now they have all these people they have to manage.
Yeah.
And most of them are not therapists, so they've never even thought about how people work.
That's right.
And how communication works. And, by our business, it's like, thank God we already kind of know some of that and have some training. So I think it can go a little better. But most people have no clue that their tone or their body language, What was the stat you said? So 7% of it is what you're saying, 33% is
38% is how you're saying it.
Okay.
55% is body language.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes
sense. The biggest rock out of our communication is we don't work on very much. And if that's 55% of how I come across to you right now is how I'm physically presenting myself, I think that's worth some intentionality.
No, I 100% agree. I think that's why the coaching part is so important, is because therapy should be that way too. But talk therapy is, and this is why we don't do therapy this way, but research shows that 7 to 9% of what's going on in the session is theory. And the other 93% is the relationship you have with the therapist.
That's interesting.
Which is weird because, they tell us not to really have a relationship with clients on some level. But I think the relationship isn't necessarily like, that we go to dinner together and that we know everything about each other. The relationship is how the therapist shows up for you in the session.
Yeah.
And most people, leaders, therapists, including pastors, they're not in their body. We're not taught in the Western culture to be aware of how we feel in our body, where our tension is on our neck. Like, am I carrying my shoulders? Have I breathed? Am I even paying attention to that I'm stiff and tight and taut,
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you know this, but it's, when somebody's like in a session with me and they're talking to their spouse and they're like, I said it just like this. I'm like, okay, well, say it right now. And then they say it and I'm like, you do realize that sounds really mean, and they're like,
wow.
I'm trying to say it really nice. And
Yeah.
then you go, okay, well, what would it look like for you to believe that you're loved and valued and that your husband cares about you? How would you then communicate? And then they say it and I'm like, okay, what do your shoulders feel like right now? And they're like,
That's
I love
good.
you. And you're like, okay, I don't believe you.
Right.
But it's like, it's that stuff that I think is super, super important that
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of time with people to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where coaches come in, and that's a lot of what you're doing.
That's
is
right.
helping them in those areas.
That's right. And you know what? I love to break it down into two categories, which is warmth and competence. Many of us lean more warm. Okay. So for me, I come from just a very warm, I'm real excitable. And like you said, a lot of energy, which means my shoulders can be up around my ears a lot. Well, the closer our shoulders are to our earlobes, the less competent we look and the less confident we look. So I have had to learn over time, okay, you know what? Relax my shoulders down and back, slow my cadence. I get real excitable. And then you've got your overcompetent people who are very stoic, very presidential, very straight up. Not a lot. This is my husband. He knows it. We talk about this often, right? He's a fun-loving guy, but when he's listening to you, he can have very little facial expression. And I remember early on, like, are you listening to me? He's like, I'm looking right at you. Of course I'm listening. I'm like, but you're not nodding. I didn't know the language. Like, you're not leaning in. Your head isn't tilted. Like, you're just still and stoic, and I feel like you don't hear me at all, right? And so I love taking people through this exercise to say, kind of, where do you lean? And based on your leaning, what can we do to even that out a little bit, to balance it out? Because the intersection of warmth and competence is where charisma lies.
Can we do that?
Sure.
Can we do it on the spot?
Let's do
Is
it.
that something we could do?
Absolutely, 100%.
I know we didn't talk about it, but okay. So what would
100%.
that look like for us?
Okay, so right now, what I love about you is you are a little bit leaned in. So let me just say some of the things you're doing phenomenally. Is this what you're asking me?
Sure.
Okay, so you're kind of leaned in a little bit. But if I were to say, Clint, do you feel, are you a confident person? Would you consider yourself confident?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself pretty self-assured, like you walk into a room and you're like, yeah, I know where I am. I know who I am. I know whose I am. I know you know that, right? If I said, Clint, do you feel like do you feel like really excited and real happy all the time?
No.
Yeah. Okay. If I said, Clint, do you find your shoulders like up around your ears a lot? Sometimes it's because we're tense, and sometimes it's just because we don't feel good about, the environment that we're in. What would you say to that?
Probably not.
Okay. So because I know you a bit and
Sure.
we've had some interaction, I would definitely put you more in the competent category, not overcompetent, because as a therapist, you have to be heart-led. And so you do have this really cool combination of both warmth and charisma, whereas somebody who would answer, and I have this whole string of questions that I'll ask in workshops, but who says, oh, wow, I've circled so many things on the competent side, and I can view them, and I'm like, I can tell that the whole time you were here, you've barely moved, you haven't leaned in, and you've been actually sitting back in your chair, which you may feel like looks relaxed, but it actually makes you look disengaged. So a competent person, to kind of balance that out, what they would want to do is maybe if somebody's speaking, just lean in a little bit of a head tilt every now and then. You don't have to live there. But what that tells the person across from them without saying anything is, you know what, you're important to me, and I'm with you, and I'm here with you, and I want you to keep going. A couple little head nods help with that too, right?
Yep.
So then you take the highly warm person, and they're like, maybe they're unconfident, maybe they're nervous, maybe they're just real excited, like I am sometimes. Maybe they're a little ADHD. This could be on either side, and so we fidget a lot, right? And if I'm sitting here the whole time and I'm playing with my jewelry, right, and I'm kind of playing with my hair, that is sending the message to you that I don't know that Lisa believes what she's saying, and she just looks a little little flighty, maybe a little unconfident, even if those aren't the words that enter your head, you can tell something is just, maybe I don't want to bring her in to work with my team because I don't know that this would translate very well. She says she's a body language coach and she hadn't left her jewelry alone. Do you see what I mean? So it's
Yes,
just
so
sometimes
true.
it's those little tweaks or, bouncing our leg while it's crossed, right? Sometimes it's just energy. It doesn't mean we're not confident, but if we're sitting across from somebody and they've never met us, we've got 200 milliseconds to let them know if we are charismatic, to let them know that they can both trust us and that we've got their back. Because that's what people want to know when they meet you. Are you competent and are you warm? Are you trustworthy and can I count on you? And you have just such a little amount of time to share that with somebody. So I love that first impression. We can be intentional when we walk into a new church, when we walk into a ministry situation, when we walk into a job interview, when we walk into any room where how we are perceived matters, because it's very hard to undo that first perception.
Yeah.
So some of those things that we go through helps you bring the presence that you want to bring in whatever environment you're in.
And I think that's so important. And not my job as a therapist, so I think we need all of it. I think when you're talking about that, there's so many people who, and not hating, but there's people that come and speak and do stuff and you're like, is no one seeing this? There's certain just temperament types and personalities where I'm like, this person is so anxious and they're talking about being calm. And it's like, do you not have any self-awareness whatsoever? And I think the reality is most people don't.
Yeah.
And they need other people to gently and lovingly kind of go, okay, you're trying to do this, but it's almost like American Idol.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, like who told this person they could sing well? And they're up there just as competent,
That's
right? And
right.
confident as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And yet their mom hadn't been like, baby, you don't need to go sing American Idol. But I think it's the same way with like people who see speakers or see leaders or see whatever, and they go, well, I just want to be that thing. Instead of going, well, no, let's assess where I actually am and who I am and what I'm capable of. And then let me try to be that really well.
That's right. And then what is it going to take to get from where I am to where I want to be?
That's right.
And it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of self-awareness, but it's doable, but it takes intentionality and it takes awareness that you even need that work in the first place.
That's right. Yeah. One of my, so one of the things that I would, work with people on as a coach, as a consultant or whatever, is if they're not doing therapy, is working with them, because I do a lot of coaching and consulting now with pastors and leaders, and because I'm a therapist, I'm always thinking about like, where's their pain? So what's the lie that's underneath keeping them from doing that, right? Being vulnerable, taking that risk. And one of my pain words, which I've had several through therapy over the years, but one of them is I can't take up space. So this idea that I grew up learning that if someone gave me a pat on the back or told me great job in front of other people, what I learned was that makes other people feel bad.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So someone told me, like, when people say good job, I didn't ever get that, or I was never popular, or I was never the whatever. And so the narrative that I learned was that that's bad then. That if someone says something to you in public that's good, you should kind of cower and hide and not take that.
Yeah.
So I've spent a lot of years like worried as a leader about being arrogant, and yet in some ways was very cocky as a young adult and trying to get things, trying to find my identity and my purpose. And then as a leader, it's like, no, confidence is not arrogance.
That's right.
Knowing who you are and whose you are and walking, like Jesus was very confident in his mission without being arrogant.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I'm human, and so therefore not half God, but I fail all the time at that.
Yeah.
But it's this space of like, working as a coach, working as a counselor, helping people be able to find that centered place of like, man, I'm competent. I think so much of that is, like you're saying, in their body and in their body language and how they present themselves. And I think a lot of people need a lot more work around that, and they would be able to see exponential growth in their talking and speaking. But you're right, they that 7%, they're like, I'm going to focus so much on what I'm saying and ignore entirely how I'm coming across.
Yeah, to your point of the couple that you mentioned earlier, right? Like that person wasn't hearing in their head how they sounded. they were just focused on the words. They're like, but I'm saying this. Kind of like when Randy was stoic and looking at me, and he's like, I'm listening to you, but I'm like, but I don't see you listening to me, and I don't know, that doesn't make sense, but I'm telling you something. So when we're not focused on the entire picture, we're missing out. They're all important, but 7%. Yeah, we need to fill those gaps and really focus on, and you know this better than me, but that person that said that, and you were like, well, that kind of sounds mean. In their mind, it did not sound mean, right? They've got a lens, they've got an experience, and in their mind, you just need to know what I mean, because this is what I mean, but from the other person's experience, it's not coming across that way. So that's where not just communication, but connection, and connection is charisma, and charisma is helping the person in front of you feel seen, valued, and understood, which means we need to focus on all three of those pieces.
Well, I think that's incredible, and I would give you 1,000%. Anybody who wants to have Lisa come in, I would have your back and tell you did a great job and made a great choice.
Oh, thanks, Clint. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely.
Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Gosh, you know what?
Did I miss anything?
I don't think you missed anything. I guess I would just encourage anybody listening, if any of this resonated with you, I'm here to help, but there's a lot of resources out there too. And if you're not familiar with John Maxwell's books, man, he's got some incredible leadership books that are everything from, 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth is one of my favorites. It's a great beginning, personal development book that I think is written at a level that just about anybody would be able to breeze through easily. So I would just say focusing on that self-awareness, like we were talking about, diving into some, communication resources, and just our goal is to leave this world better than we found it. We want to create ripples of impact, and we cannot do that if we're not intentional about growing ourselves.
It's good. Well, thank you so much. You're a delight to be around, and I love you and Randy and your family, and thankful for what you're doing. And, just know that knowing you and seeing what God's doing in your life, and knowing your perception and perspective, and already experiencing it myself professionally, I mean, you're just going to continue to blow up because it's needed. I mean, it's a gospel thing. I mean, you're teaching people how to be and how to be in their body and be present and be their best imago Dei.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's why you're doing it underneath all of it, but it's so needed in our culture, in a world that is killing people with the poison of success that's totally wrong. So I'm thankful for what you're doing, and I think it's such a mission and a ministry that you bring to people in their lives that'll help them love on other people and make the world a better place. So
God is good. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Amen. All right. Thank you guys for listening. God bless you, and have a good week.